Now, from deep in the heart of Texas, LifeTalk. Here's your host, Mark Crutcher.
Welcome to LifeTalk for April 2010. I'm Mark Crutcher, back again with the usual suspects, Cherie Johnson, Johnny Hunter, Troy Newman, and as always, Father Frank Pavone and Janet Morano will be here later. But of course, the first order of business is Alan Ackles with this month's LifeTalk News. Alan?
All right, thanks, Mark. The nationwide epidemic of pro-choice violence continued this month as a Georgia man was convicted of murdering his 16-year-old girlfriend. 20-year-old Matthew Frederick Wilkins had met Marlissa Wells while attending Christian Ministries Academy in Marietta. Upon learning that she may be pregnant and wanted to keep the baby, he told several people he wasn't ready to be a father. When he cornered the young girl in a bathroom, he stabbed her repeatedly, slammed her head into a toilet tank, and drove a fork into her back. An autopsy later revealed that Ms. Wells was not pregnant. It has been learned that the University of Wisconsin has paid out almost $60,000 to train abortionists. The information was obtained from an open records request obtained by Pro-Life Wisconsin and the Alliance Defense Fund. Peggy Hamill, State Director of Pro-Life Wisconsin, said that despite the fact that Wisconsin laws prohibits any state agency from funding abortion or abortion programs, medical residents in the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine receive state funds to work rotations at Planned Parenthood, where they observe and participate in abortions. Well, in Washington, D.C., an abortionist who had a pool table in his exam room and kept beer in the office refrigerator has been arrested on drug charges. According to reports, Howard Levine, a longtime abortionist, has been caught selling meth and will be sent back to prison, his third stay in 10 years. Levine, known by the nickname of Dr. Viagra, previously served time for the attempted extortion of $500,000 from the Jack in the Box fast food chain and for selling steroids to gay clients at a Capitol Hill Starbucks coffee shop. According to State Department of Health records from 1991 through 1998, at least 9 patients accused Levine of violations ranging from verbal abuse and refusal to don surgical gloves to perforating the uteruses of several patients who later required emergency surgery. In April 2009, Levine's medical license was permanently revoked. And in Pennsylvania, the health department raided a West Philadelphia abortion clinic owned by abortionist Kermit Gosnell and reported what it called deplorable conditions, including blood-covered floors and fetuses being stored in jars. They also found that emergency resuscitation and monitoring equipment were either non-existent or broken, and that the only suction source for clearing a blocked airway was the same one used for doing abortions. Among many other serious infractions, the investigation also found that the clinic did not have the drugs needed to treat a patient for cardiac arrest, allergic reactions, or excessive bleeding, and that the facility's oxygen mask and tubing were covered in a thick gray layer of dust. In addition, the investigation discovered that several patients required transfer to the hospital and that the clinic routinely failed to report such complications to the state. However, public records show that Gosnell has had at least 2 deaths and dozens of abortion-related lawsuits against him. Also in Pennsylvania, a favorable settlement with the city of York has been reached on behalf of 2 pro-life sidewalk counselors who had been arrested for exercising their First Amendment rights in a public alley next to Planned Parenthood. Ed Snell and John McTiernan were represented by attorneys allied with the Alliance Defense Fund in 2 separate lawsuits against the city. In April 2009, a federal judge's decision against them was reversed by the U.S. Court of Appeals. That action opened their cases to a jury trial and established a precedent that limits the ability of police to use special rules to silence pro-lifers. The family of a Pennsylvania middle school student who was told by school officials to turn a pro-life T-shirt inside out will receive $16,140 for legal fees as part of a settlement approved by the West Shore School Board. The student's father, William Boyer, had filed a lawsuit in federal district court claiming his son was unfairly censored when he was ordered to turn his homemade "Abortion is not health care" T-shirt inside out. The board has changed the dress code to prohibit only clothing with obscene pictures, gestures, or words, and amended their student expression policy to ban anything that promotes illegal drug use, is lewd or offensive, or disrupts schoolwork, classes, or activities. And in yet another pro-life victory, Planned Parenthood of South Florida and the Treasure Coast has acknowledged it will not request a $50,000 grant from the Martin County Children's Services Council for a program that promoted contraception and abortion in the Hispanic community. In a letter disclosing the decision not to apply for funding, Planned Parenthood CEO Lillian Tamayo demonized pro-lifers and characterized their efforts as intimidation and harassment by a group whose political agenda is outside mainstream American life. However, several local Hispanic leaders say they were unaware of Planned Parenthood's eugenic intentions, and none of them saw a need for the program. And in a similar victory, a resolution praising pro-life pregnancy centers has passed both the Virginia House of Delegates and Senate. This comes just 1 week after pro-abortion legislation attacking pregnancy centers was soundly defeated in the state's legislature. And finally, updating a previous LifeTalk news story, a pro-choice man who received a death sentence for murder has had his Facebook account pulled down. Nicholas Johnson was sentenced to death in 2007 after a jury found him guilty of fatally shooting Bristol, Tennessee police officer Mark Vance. Witnesses testified that Johnson had become infuriated when his 17-year-old girlfriend refused his demand to get an abortion. He then told them that he would kill the first person who came into his apartment, saying that he'd rather go to prison for murder than statutory rape. Johnson's Facebook account of over 300 friends was taken down after prison officials ruled that it violated their rules against prisoners having access to social networking sites. I'm Alan Ackles for LifeTalk News. You can get daily updates by logging on to prolifeamerica.com. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Alan. Well, we've got a lot to talk about today, as we always do. And, of course, we're going to be talking about the healthcare thing here in a minute. But I'll tell you, in my view, something much more important as far as the pro-life movement is concerned happened the other day that's much more important than healthcare, and that's Father Marks died. Father Paul Marks. He is from HLI. He's one of the neatest people that you'd ever meet. If you meet him in person, he was funny and he was enjoyable to be around, and he was just always a really neat person, and one of the heroes of the pro-life movement, one of the founders of this movement. And
I had the privilege.
He was 80.
Of spending over 8 hours on the plane sitting beside him.
Wow.
He invited me to come to Africa because for some reason Human Life International wasn't making inroads into Africa, and they were because of denominational lines. And he invited me to come across, and he said something to me. He said, he said, Brother Johnny, he says, when you get to Africa, you're going to be very busy. And he was not kidding. I mean, and I always loved him because here I am, an evangelical. He's a Catholic priest.
Right.
And he took me on my first trip to Africa.
Right.
And 1 hour after I got off the plane, I was speaking to somewhere. I spoke 4 or 5 times a day, everywhere. For the 2 weeks we was there, I was booked every single day. He got to go on a safari for 3 days. I didn't, But I always remember I had the greatest respect for him because here was a man that went beyond whatever he could do to save a life.
Right.
And I had the utmost respect for him. It was because of him and Matthew Hobbinger that even learned, guys, they actually financed our first conference that we held.
Oh, really? That's great.
They did.
And he didn't care if you were, he knew I was Southern Baptist, and he donated to Life Dynamics. I mean, he even after he retired, we'd get a little $10 check or $20 check from him once in a while, and I talked to him on the phone every once in a while, but I just called him to see how he was doing. But he was just a really neat guy, and to me, that's much more tragic than this healthcare thing, and as tragic as this is, and let's talk about that.
And Mark, did you notice how consistent he was with the pro-life message?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 100% consistent all the way through. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he just went even right down. He would say, if you're going to have contraceptives, you're going to have abortion. And he says, no, there's no exception. I mean, he was consistent.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was a neat
Consistent.
He was winsome, too.
Yeah, he was. He was funny, and he didn't take himself too seriously. He didn't take himself seriously at all, actually. But, anyway, as we know, today is the day we're taping this, is the day that Comrade Obama is going to sign in the socialist medicine deal.
You mean the abortion bailout fund?
It's the abortion stimulus package. Make no mistake, we've talked about it here many times. That's what this is about. And people say, well, you're overestimating the importance of abortion here. Yeah. Let me tell you something. The proof was in the way they handled this thing. Mm-hmm. They risked not getting health care instead of making precise language in the bill that excluded abortion. They clearly did not want this bill unless it paid for abortion, and it does. Right. And Stupak and these other guys who are nothing but cowards and turncoats and traitors, sellouts, know good and well that they sold out. He can say all he wants to, that this executive order and all this nonsense prevents it. It doesn't.
Yeah. Stupak was a major disappointment for a lot of people, but I am not surprised. I am convinced that a lot of people out there got elected pretending to be something they weren't.
Right.
But the bottom line comes down, when these people see abortion, if that thing didn't have an abortion in it,
They didn't
never
want it.
went through it. This is not a health care bill. This thing was a death and we don't care.
Right.
You know, and they made it adamant. They went after abortion big time. Stupak was lying to people from the get-go. I've said it early and I say it again. He was blatantly lying to people, pretending to be something he was not.
Right.
Now, the person I'm really upset to is John Lewis. Back in the civil rights days, John Lewis knew as a young man that blacks that were involved in civil rights said, we do this not for ourselves, but for our fellow Negro brothers and sisters yet to be born. That man has now got to be in Congress, and he forgot his roots. I am more ashamed of him, Stupak, as I am of Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi and Obama, I know where they're coming from. John Lewis has no excuse.
Well, when you look at Pelosi and Obama and Reid and that crowd, you can't blame a snake for being a snake. That's what they are.
Yeah.
Right. But at least Stupak should have just come out and said, I'm a snake. But he didn't have the guts to do that. He tried to play both ends against the middle. But let me tell you this.
He did try to tell you that, though, Mark. He told people I'm a Democrat. I mean...
But wait a minute, Johnny. Let me tell you what the reaction to, what the result of this is going to be now. Stupak's and that crowd are men without countries. Right. Because if they think that they're going to get support from the pro-aborts, they're nuts. The pro-aborts will never trust them again.